Yeah, so I got two questions. Second one a bit more specific. First one is to talk about subtle worlds, subtle realms, subtle beings, this kind of thing. And before I talk about this, I wanted to read out something from Vashishta about this. I rarely read out other stuff on this, but just for fun, the only things I read now, I read sometimes Vashishta. I'll maybe open it on my phone once a day and just have a look for fun, and one book from one Dzogchen master as well. That's all that I read now, casually. The Yoga Vashishta is so, good. I mean, it's like the version that I've got is like 1,200 pages. And if you read all of this 1,200 pages, and this is an abridged version, and if someone said, "Well, what's it about?" you wouldn't know what to say after all those pages. You'd say it's about the supreme consciousness, and he just repeats himself all the way through the same points again, 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 hammering the same points in different ways. Um, Maybe this Avadhutam books that I do will be a bit like this, because these things I write on the group, I put them all together for the next edition of that. Once I get 40,000 words, and I'll do volume two like that. So I think that's the only books I'll do now. Probably no proper ones after this data one, just compiling whatever spontaneous writings come. But anyway, he says in this chapter, which is called The World Within the Rock, he says, after having remained in Samadhi for 100 years, I returned to body consciousness and heard a sigh. I listened to it and tried to guess what it might be. I was far, far in the outer space, so how could any person or even a bee exist so near me there? Moreover, I could not see anyone. I decided to investigate it further. I decided to enter into Samadhi again. I silenced the mind and the senses. I merged in the infinite consciousness. I saw reflected in that consciousness the image of countless universes. I was able to go anywhere to see everything. I saw countless creations, though they did not know of one another's existence. Some were coming into being, others were perishing. All of them had different shielding atmospheres, from 5 to 36 atmospheres. There were different elements in each. They were inhabited by different types of beings in different stages of evolution with different natures and cultures. Some had other universes within them. In some, there were creatures you would not believe possible to exist. In some, there was apparent natural order, and in others, there was utter disorder. In some, there was no light, and hence no time sense. All these are but fruits of the one indivisible, infinite consciousness. How and when they arose, it is impossible to say, but this much is certain: they are all creations of ignorance. In this creation, there are gods and demons numerous as mosquitoes. Whether one regards these universes as the creations of the Supreme Creator or as false notions, it is certain that they are in fact the infinite consciousness, non-different and not independent from it. They rest like inert realities in the descriptions found in the scriptures. Thus did I behold all these infinite creations. So, I mean, the answer to this question is in this already, which is one, once we go into subtle realities, it's infinite. Look, even this worldly, earthly reality is infinite. If you want to keep breaking it down, you know, if you want to look, people scientists keep studying things. So, natural scientists, chemists, biologists, physicians, astronomers, they keep, these people have still got jobs. These people are still writing papers. These people are still studying things, finding things out, breaking things down, slicing things into smaller and smaller pieces, you know. So this creation, the elements, the aspects of this creation are infinite. You know, you can break them down as much as you want to do. Likewise, there are people who explore subtler worlds. Um, you know, it's possible to develop these kind of psychic abilities. It's possible to develop these even without knowing who we are, our essence, actually. Most of the people who claim to be psychic or have some powers or have something to do with, you know, chakras or kundalini or entities or channeling, 99.9% of these are not what we would call, you know, jnanis or yogis or people who have recognized their essence, their reality. um, usually these usually the higher especially in this day and age, usually the higher masters will behave in more ordinary ways. Even in this book, it's said a few times. Usually, in these days, the higher masters usually behave and live like normal people on the surface. One of the reasons for this is not to reveal themselves. It's not it's not wise for them to reveal themselves, right? In times where people lust after power, it's not it's not wise to reveal that, okay, I have all this cosmic power. It's just, you know, and not to mention that if you reveal those kind of things and you give open displays of powers and siddhis and all these kind of things, you can draw the wrong people to you. You can draw people who are drawn to just miracles and displays of powers and all these things. But the point is with all these subtle aspects is that it's so infinite that if we wanted to spend, you know, the next 100 lives, the next 1,000 lives going into these things, we can. And we can even, it's even possible to 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 take another birth and go and be in these subtler realities. I mean, it's beautiful what he says here. He says most of these creations don't know about the existence of the other ones. So most of these creations are like us here on Earth that just think, oh, we're the people, we're the conscious ones, because that's an expression of our own limited consciousness in that I am the center of the universe. I am the most important person, you know, basically, right? Even another book I read about one master who was doing tapas, who was doing these long hours of meditation. When he was doing this for years in a row. And once his master, who had left the body, used to come to him sometimes and take him out of the body and take him on these tours of, you know, different universes, different realms, and all these different kind of things. And he said to him, he said, "You're seeing all of these things because you have got an impression. You know, you have got, you know, it's your prabdha karma to see these things. You've got at some point you had a desire to see and experience these things in these places. That's why you're here. That's that's why I'm showing you these things." Yeah, I've said this before. Nothing in our life is random. We're either in a situation because we've had a desire for something. We're either in a situation because we've feared something, and like I say, that pulls that thing equally to us. Or we're in a situation that we're paying off an experience we've had. We're paying off in the form of debt, some desire that we've fulfilled or something. So everything is nothing is random. But this master said to him, he said, "I'm showing you all of this because you desire to see all this, and obviously, if you're going now, you know, you're becoming towards becoming liberated. You've got to exhaust all these things. Have got to be exhausted. They have to be ticked off." But he says, if by seeing these things you create impressions to come back come back and see them again, or to explore them even further, then, you know, maybe when you won't become fully liberated, but after you leave the body, you will come to these you will come to these realms, and you will be in these realms. So you might not come back to the earth, but you'll come here and you'll experience all of these things, and you can go into them. Maybe after some few hundred years passes, you'll become liberated after spending time in these worlds. So all these things are possible, all these things are there. And if we have the desire to experience these things, somehow it'll open up for us. But having a subtle experience of something that you can't see with the physical eye, something that you can't hear with the physical ears, for instance, that is no more spiritual than just having an experience with the five senses. What I call anyway spirituality doesn't relate to psychic powers or subtle phenomena. You can have these, subtle phenomena. You can fill your boots. You can take psychedelic drugs, and you can have all these things. Even with that, you can even have after effects where you see. I was reading about this the other day, where you can see different things with your eyes open. You can see different things. You can see energy moving and this kind of stuff. Some people have this after prolonged drug use. But I don't regard these things as necessarily spiritual. For me, the spirituality is the connection with that changeless, permanent essence of existence. The spiritual thing is that thing that is permanent, unchanging, unalterable, unborn, immortal. That's the that's the spiritual thing, and the path is whatever gets us closer to that, whichever gets us more refined, so we can experience ourselves as that. As I always say, it's not a new thing. Reality. It's not something that we have to create. It's always there, but it's covered. It's covered by our mind activity, and it's covered by our the experiences that we still desire to have, the experiences that we don't desire to have. All of this activity, all of this churning, all of this movement, this keeps us distracted, this keeps us preoccupied, so we don't see that one. So the path back to that, this path of refining, this path of dissolving, can involve subtle experiences, cannot involve subtle experiences. My path, I don't think, involved really many subtle experiences. I didn't have visions and stuff like this. I had a few dreams here and there. I heard some things, communications, which maybe I can, at that time, I could say was masters speaking to me. Other times I might say, well, that's just my own consciousness speaking to me. Who knows? But the important thing for me is that I was never actually interested in any of these things. And that means I didn't get caught up with them or hung up with them. Same thing also, powers can come, powers can manifest, people can get powers to read people's minds, people can get powers to predict the future, people can get powers to have vision, see things, even crazy stuff. People can get power to levitate and have mind over matter and stuff like this. But the key thing to always look at in this, when we're judging, is this spiritual, is this not spiritual, we say, is this a changing experience? Does this come and does this go? Right? When we're really there is when we really feel like we have realized ourselves as something which doesn't begin and doesn't end. When we can really, it doesn't mean we have to do it out loud, but we can read, things like, Avadhuta Gita, Ashtavakra Gita, all these things where, that Adi Shankara one where he talks about that, I am beginningless, I am endless, I haven't been born, I am not something that has been born. Okay, a body is here, but I am not that body. I can't be wet by water. I can't be burned by fire. The goal is to really not just intellectually, but really feel these things, you know, really feel ourselves as that self, that true self. And when we really feel ourselves as that communicates in life, we are that fearless then, you know, then we will fully be happy if someone says, okay, you know, clicks their fingers and says, okay, in 10 minutes you're gone. This incarnation with this form, this name, this is finishing in 10 minutes. You know, if you're established in that, you won't you won't feel anything. If there's anything to take care of, any whatever you can do in 10 minutes, sorting out your earthly business, you've got smartphone or whatever, you can do it. But otherwise, that's it. You're ready to go, because you know that you're not this body, you're not this personality. So subtle experiences, subtle all this and that. It's not, it's not 100% necessary to get to that kind of experience. I try to talk about, when I do these talks or post on the groups, well, I try and talk about things that are relevant, that have been relevant for me to get to that. Might not be relevant for everyone. People have got different paths. At the end of the day, I can only talk about my own experience, the way I've been trying to walk the path. So that's it. Um, so that's pretty much it. And basically, if we want to know about our own subtle form and what our own subtle form does and all this and that and what our own subtle body is like, then we just need to look at our mind, basically. Because, if you're imagining some kind of subtle body like some other kind of energetic body with chakras and all of this kind of things and different colors and auras and stuff, yeah, that does exist, but that part of us is also what we experience as our mind, right? So if you were able to see, okay, this is an image of my subtle body, my subtle channels, my subtle vortexes and all this kind of stuff, and then here is my mind activity. If you were able to have these things on two kind of screens, like some cool technology, you would see that as the emotions change, the mind changes, the thoughts go, to different places. All this subtle body will be changing, flowing, shifting, from moment to moment. As the brain activity change, it'd be going like that. So, our subtle body is just our mind, basically. And the more purified the mind becomes, the more purified the subtle body becomes. And eventually that subtle body even loses its individual characteristics. For instance, it's like people have said when they do this Maitri or whatever on Master like Mohanji, they don't see a subtle, an individual subtle body. It's more like a vast golden body. Svana Sharira is the name of this golden body, and that's apparently what happens to the subtle body after liberation happens. It becomes like an illuminated subtle body. But up until that point, the subtle body houses all our memories, all our knots, all our traumas, all our insecurities, and they all exist inside the subtle body. And then that subtle body translates itself out into this, into the gross body. So it's layers of creation, so they're overlapping. So um, some illnesses, for instance, some physical illnesses that say just come out of nowhere. It's not like, okay, I ate some dodgy food and now I've got food poisoning. Like some illnesses that come from nowhere, they directly come from something and not a tightness, something which is in the subtle body, and it manifests in the physical body. And some of these are kind of predestined. Some of our things in our subtle body work themselves out in the form of physical illnesses, physical pain. So also we should never, when we've got physical things pop up, we should never really curse these things, because sometimes these things might save us having different experiences which might be even more painful, which we don't know what are going to be. So, karma is an infinite way of working itself out. Um, so yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say about this subtle bodies and this kind of stuff. If we have interest in these things, we can go into it, but we shouldn't be under the illusion that it's necessarily going to go. With this spiritual stuff, the results should be there um, every day. It's not like, oh, I'm doing this, doing this, and then one day it's going to happen. Or I'm doing this kind of subtle stuff, or I'm doing this kind of, chakra stuff, or this kind of stuff, and suddenly and somehow invisibly this is having an effect on me. No, this path, we have to be very conscious about doing this work. Like I said, the signs of progress are all there in our daily life, because we all have these knots in our daily life, these moments of pain, suffering, tightness, contraction, fear, insecurity. And the sign that we're making progress on the path is that these things start loosening up. It's as simple as that. Not just not like they disappear overnight, but that they loosen up with time. And this is how we say, yes, things are loosening up for me. I always say, yeah, I've noticed this pattern I've got in myself, and this situation came, and 6 months ago I would have been extremely triggered. I would have been going crazy, but today I'm not perfect, but I'm better. That's the sign that something is happening. So I said this loads of times. I wrote about this. I think even in my first book I wrote about this, that you know when you're really looking for the real thing, then you can't fool yourself. You can't fool yourself to say that you're evolving when you're not. You won't go to some, charlatan guru that tries to sell you something, because you'll be looking every day. Am I expanding? Am I relaxing? Yes or no. And if you're not, you do something else. You try something else. You speak to another guide, teacher, whatever. So that's why I say, there's no problem on this path that are really for people that are really after that expansion, that liberation, because they're going to go there. If that's their interest, they're going to go there. Same for anybody in any field, right? If someone's really one-pointed, look, I want to make money, I want to be a millionaire, billionaire, they'll go there. You know, this is what will happen. So yeah, that's that one. That's that question. And then the other one, someone asked me, I'll go into, which is a really good question, actually. Yeah, someone said, Monji talks about having self-respect and leaving when being treated as a doormat. How to know when it's being treated as a doormat and not as being flexible enough? Also reminded of how you were sharing once when you said yes to everything. Yeah, this is a great question. I love these kind of questions, actually. After having some few years of talking to people now about these things, I usually find that you really get the real progress. You know, penny really drops with people when people address things which are very like tangible, related to that direct experience of life. Then rather than people asking kind of intellectual questions or questions about consciousness or this and that, because these aren't the areas where we're tripping up. Most of us are tripping up in very mundane life situations, interactions with others, relationships, work, all these kind of things. So when people ask me things which are very, directly related to, very, down to earth life stuff, I always feel that, okay, this is when actual progress can be made, because in these things, this is how all our obstacles are expressing ourselves. Our obstacles, our inner misalignments, don't express themselves in the, oh, I don't understand Upanishads, or I don't understand Avadhuta Gita or stuff like this. No, it's in life. This stuff is playing out in life already. And as I say, one of the things for me, which I think that helped me on this path, is that I was really seeing when there was something like this, when I had some weakness, when I had some tightness, and stuff like this. So the simple answer about this, so how do we know when someone's, treating us as a doormat, and we're kind of having low boundaries, or we're just not being we're just not being flexible, or no, the question is how to know if we're being a doormat, someone's walking all over us, or we're just being a flexible person. Very, very, very simple answer to this actually, and is that you'll feel it, right? When someone kind of enters our boundaries, pushes us around, treats us as a doormat, there's some kind of feeling there in us of discomfort. It might be to a greater extent violation, discomfort to a lesser extent. It'll be a feeling of no. We'll feel that that's not being quite right here, and we, would have liked to have said something more, or we would have liked to argue, or something like this. If you're just being flexible, right? Someone asks you to do something, you wanted to do something different, someone asks you to do it like this, and you say, okay, yeah, fine, I'll do it. There won't be any feeling of, there won't be any kind of feeling of contraction, tightness, discomfort, and also it won't leave any stain behind in the consciousness, right? If someone kind of crosses our boundaries or something like this, and we just go along with it, we don't do anything about it, we don't say anything, we don't resist or anything like this, we don't stand up for ourselves, it will leave some residue in the mind, the emotions, and the subtle body, and whatever, and we'll feel it coming back on us over a few days. Actually, yes, yeah. Someone here actually has written me a few times about this, relating to also relating to what I was saying at the end of that last point, about how certain uncomfortable experiences, moments, if they rose up, they'd be with that person for maybe a week after or more, and then as they go along the path, this residue of this negative uncomfortable experience becomes less. But that's the main difference here with this. Okay, when am I being a doormat, and when am I just being a flexible, good person? If we're being treated as a doormat, we're having low boundaries, we're not expressing ourselves as we should, there'll be a feeling of discomfort, and there'll be some residue after. If we're just being flexible, we're just compromising, we're just like this, we won't feel anything after. This is what we have to watch out for on this path, actually, and not just this kind of experience, but all kinds, is these experiences that leave this residue, that leave this kind of bad taste. These are the experiences where our binding patterns are most active, right? And these things can leave a residue for the rest of our lives, right? Rest of our lives into future lives. Only when we really get onto this kind of path, this solution path, do we actually start burning these things. I mean, some people can do some work and therapy and stuff, and start getting into some of these things, but by bringing these up, by digesting these things within the consciousness, But yeah, that's basically how to tell the difference. And okay, that's how to tell the difference. Then okay, what to do about it? You have to see. You have to ask yourself, look, this path is about cleaning out my mind, cleaning out my subtle body, cleaning out my consciousness. And if I'm constantly acting in a way when interacting with people that I am allowing this buildup of residue in my consciousness, which comes from acting like a doormat. It's like people dump their stuff on you, and you dump your own stuff on you. You have this feeling of, no, I should have stood up for myself there, and that sticks with you. You know, you carry that around with you then. And the more you carry that around with you, the more people will try to walk all over you and push your boundaries and these kind of things. So you have to ask yourself, you know, I'm trying to walk this path. I'm trying to unload. I can't be. Do I want to allow this buildup of more and more and more residue? Because then liberation is out of the question. You know, if we're just accumulating more residue, then it's going to take more time to dissolve it. You know, this path is we've got to get through stuff. So then what do we do? Then we have to act in such a way that doesn't allow this residue building up to happen. You know, so in that moment we put up a boundary. We say, no, this is what I think, this is what I want to do, or no, sorry, I disagree, or okay, I don't like the way you're talking to me, and this kind of thing. Whatever happens in the situation is not really important. Some people, if you know, some people are narcissistic and they only surround themselves with people that allow them to cross their boundary, then these people probably won't want anything to do with you anymore, because they realize, well, look, I can't act as I can't cross this person's boundaries. So some people may walk away, some people might start arguing with you even more, but you have to do whatever you need to do to keep that, to maintain the sanctity of your boundaries, of your feeling of, look, this is my space, this is who I am, this is what I think, and stand up for yourself like that. That doesn't make you a saint, but it allows you to protect this inner space within you and not allow this residue to build up. And then you start walking in life through that. And as soon as you start walking like that, with this strong sense of um, self-respect and willingness to have conflict with people, have arguments with people, stand up for yourself, then people will start respecting you more as well. Um, so this is very important. Some people may get confused with this on spiritual path and think we have to be neutral about everything and everything has to be chilled out and okay. And look, I'm always talking about accepting everything. But I've tried many times to elucidate what I mean by that acceptance. But the point is that we have to see how we feel in each moment. We can look in the past at different masters, and they, tolerate different kinds of things. I said in one of these other sessions about Tembe Swami's story. Somebody did black magic on him. No, he was trying to protect someone else from black magic. Then they sent the black magic at him, and he didn't retaliate. Because he thought if he would have retaliated with his spiritual power, it would have killed the other person. So he did nothing, right? And due to that black magic, he lived with dysentery then for the rest of his life. But we're not Tembe Swami, right? This is the point. Like someone like that, what's the difference? You might ask, is that he genuinely wouldn't have felt anything in that moment. When you establish your identity as the self, the real self, some things might happen to you. Some people might say some things, do some things, and it's just like you absorb it. It just disappears in a void, and it's gone. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. I remember this happened to me on my path also. At other times, beings like that who appear to do that sometimes you might see them another day turn around and give somebody such a scolding like you've never seen before. So we can't copy how masters behave on that level. We have to see how we feel, because this path is how we are evolving, we're expanding through our limitations day after day after day. And one of those limitations might be fear of conflict, fear of argument, fear of disagreement. Yeah, I definitely had this at some point as well. But again, that fear has to be broken, because if you don't break it, then you'll just keep drawing it to you, and that experience will keep coming back again and again and again and again, poking you. And that's how you know something is there, because you'll feel a poke there, right? If you're going, that are the things we have to pay attention to in life, where we feel that poke, that pinch. Right? This means a pattern is at play. And what do we need to do when a pattern is at play? As I always say, we need to either decide to decisively act, or we need just to completely accept it. Not this in the middle stewing in these things, and these kind of situations cause this kind of stewing. Like I said, they cause this residue. So, okay, an incident happens, we don't do anything, we don't say anything. Next day, we still feel it. We still feel this bitter taste. And that kind of marinating in that bitter taste stops us marinating in bliss of the self, right? It covers it. So then we have to see, what do I have to do? We have to look and say, no, I really feel something. At the moment, I'm trying to accept. Maybe I've heard some idiot saying on WhatsApp, accept everything, and I'm trying to accept, but my feeling is, no, 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 something is not right here. I feel my boundary violated. I feel this residue build up. So then what does it mean? If acceptance is not working, if acceptance is not clearing the air, then action has to be there. And what's the action in this case? In that interaction, we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to disagree. We have to affirm our boundaries. We have to argue, whatever. And once we do that, I mean, if we do that, we can create the most awkward possible social situation. But afterwards, day after, we'll feel, I spoke my truth. I defended myself. I stood up for myself. I respected myself. And this doesn't necessarily make you feel all of a sudden blissful, but it doesn't leave that residue behind of regret, basically. Um, so yeah, that's basically how it is. And again, this not on this path, it's never a one size fits all thing. Something with you might wind you up, and another person, they might just be able to be like, okay, yeah, whatever, right? So this person who's able to say whatever, if the next day there's no residue, there's no build up, there's nothing, then fine, he can do that. He can be chilled out and accept. But if that same situation happens with you and you say, okay, yeah, whatever, but then the next day you're marinating in this negativity, then there's something there for you that you need to take care of. So yeah, it's as simple as that. Same also with, I always think this with procrastinating as well. Procrastinating for me is, it's not just not doing something. It's not doing something, but you've kind of got the residue inside you that, oh, I should be doing this, but I'm not. For me, that's the kind of procrastination. If you just decide, I'm not going to do this thing, maybe tomorrow, I'll revisit it tomorrow. For me, that's not procrastination. I do this all the time, right? Because there's no residue. Say, okay, then I'll do it. But procrastination is kind of like, definitely when I was a kid, I used to procrastinate with homework, because leave it until Sunday night or whatever to do it. It's hanging over me all week. And yeah, you can feel it. And I could have cut through that residue just by doing it. So Yeah, this was a really good question because it really allows us to get into this point. Actually, we have to see what experiences, what interactions in our life leave this kind of sticky residue within us that hangs over into the next day. And look at the things, look at your interactions with people that don't leave this residue, that leave a kind of clean slate behind. And we can try and cultivate those things as much as we want, but with the case with, standing up for ourselves, as long as we're around people, it's always going to happen. Because when we don't, because people always try. That's the thing, is that people will always try to get a bit more from you. And some people, if you give them an inch, they'll take a foot or a yard or whatever. So yeah, we can't avoid this thing. Life tests us all the time. So yeah, to sum up that one, there's something we should pay attention to. What experiences create this residue for us, and then we have to assess um, what we have to do with that. Do we need to? Will acceptance work, or have we got to take concrete, direct action? Right. Some people on the other side of this scale, for instance, who was more of like an aggressor. Okay, not sure how many aggressors are here, but people on an aggressor scale who flip out, get angry for no reason whatever, arguing always in people's business, they will have a different approach. For them, it'll be maybe they've naturally got a good sense of boundaries, but that strong sense of boundaries extends into sometimes of invading others. So some people have to learn to back off a little bit and accept. But definitely, I think more common on this spiritual realm is more kind of this. People are more peaceful by nature, but also have tendency to let other people cross their boundaries, and it's very, very, very dangerous to confuse these things and think that because I let people walk all over me, because I'm super agreeable to anything that people say, anything that people want to do, this makes me very peaceful, laid back person. It doesn't work like that, right? The peaceful, laid back person who's in a constant state of their inner state is a totally residue free zone. That's that person. And you don't know how that person's going to look in action. It depends who's around them. You know, some of these great masters, sages, some of them can be very argumentative, difficult characters, right? Internally, totally peaceful, but it depends who's around them. If they're surrounded by a bunch of rakshasas, then what choice have they got but to be scolding, bashing people all the time? Depending on who's around them. So we have to get this to a state on this path where our self-expression becomes very fluid. We're capable of expressing ourselves strongly, disagreeing, saying, "Hey, no, this is a boundary there. You're not allowed to cross it. Sorry." We have to be capable of doing that, and also capable of being totally peaceful and whatever. But the aligning principle on this is our own inner sense of cleanness, peace. Not congested, not contracted. So that's why it's an individual path, because all of these little micro lessons that come from different interactions that leave different residues, they're going to be completely different for everybody. So that's why we need to be extremely honest to ourselves and see, what creates this tension for me, what creates this tightness for me, what creates this residue for me. And my advice is when you go into that, look and see what's the remedy here. Do I need to take concrete, decisive action, or do I just need to accept? You can try accepting. With this kind of case, you can try and accept. You go in your new usual pattern of being a doormat or whatever. Try the acceptance first if you want. Get that out of the way, and then you see, no, action actually has to be there. I'm continually in that mode. I continually am accepting everything, my whole activity, my whole state in life, physical state, social state, financial state, whatever. I'm continually in that mode, and then I wait to see some flow enters into my consciousness and starts poking me. This you need to do. This you need to go. This person you need to talk to. And I kind of push it away and say, no, 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 no. I don't want to do. I don't want to do anything. Eventually, when I feel a strong push, then I do that thing. And for me, that's how I live my whole life. Actually, I was saying to someone the other day, I don't know how I've kind of been to many places, written things, done things, because I'm someone who doesn't want to do anything. But life pushes. That push comes from karma. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, even when if you become Jivan Mukta, liberated while alive, that thing will still come and push you to go and do whatever. But the difference is it'll be extremely smooth then. That push will just be your natural flow of life. I like to say with this thing that what's something which is really, really, really natural to us. I'm thirsty. I go and get a drink of water. Right. I need to pee. I go to pee. Right. Everything should be this natural for us in life. This clean. I feel like doing this now. I go and do it. Eventually, we can get into such a state where everything is that clean and natural for us, where everything is just as simple as, okay, I'm thirsty, let me drink water. And also, we don't have any of this things that come from outside. Oh, look, you should do this. Oh, look, you should do that. Blah blah blah. Social stuff, cultural stuff, family stuff, whatever. If that doesn't gel with what we naturally feel is our natural flow, we just say no, thank you. If it does gel, we think, oh, that's a great idea. This is a message coming from Lord. Then we say, okay, I do it. So eventually things have got to become that natural, and that naturality comes only when we train in this day after day after day, seeing ourselves, seeing where our tight spots are, our contracted spots are, and then gradually loosening up, loosening out of them with time through either acceptance or action. Sometimes on this path, we've got to take action. We have to speak our mind. We have to stand up for ourselves. It's a very important part of the path. Anyway, I've said enough.